Okay, so let me start from the back end. This is what a back end looks like under the hood. You won't see this anywhere. It runs on the server, but this is what it looks like. Eventually, I go to host this so that it becomes accessible to anybody anywhere in the world. This is what they call routes. For example, user routes. You can see that when you have your application, for example, you come here, let me show you something. You see things like, and where are you? Just a second. You see things like maybe NFCS alumni / API / users. You must have seen stuff like that in applications, or API / contact us, API / expenses. These are routes. Those routes are starting from here. Then you can see user routes. Let me go to the user routes. It now completes here. So there's a login, logout, get user, update user. All those things are routes, and I'll show you how it works soon. Then these routes, what are they doing? When you open that route, what is it supposed to do? Is what they call a controller. Register user, for example. This controller. I'm going to the user controller. So register user. Register user. This is where you write the logic for what it takes for a user to be registered. You see that you're asking you're getting name, email, and password from the user. That's request.body. When that comes, you validate. You say, if there is a name, if there's no name, if there's no email, and if there's no password, send this error message. Please fill in all the required fields. And this is a status code, 400. 400 means there's an error. If the password is less than 8 in length, password must be at least 8 characters. If user email is already registered, you can see you have checking with find one. This is a MongoDB command. I'm not trying to teach you programming. I'm trying to tell that it is your day-to-day logic. People that were asking, why do you need maths? Why do you need logic? Why do you know those things in school? This is why. Programming is logic. If you're logical, if you're good with maths, especially probability and logical parts of maths, for example, I think you have the potential to be a very good developer if you're interested. So you see that it's pure logic going all the way. All these things are just the control for registering a user. Everything here. Now let me show you some other things. The model that defines the user. The model is the user model, for example. Look at this. We're asking for name, email, password, and name is a string, email is a string, is required, means it must be given. It must be unique, email must be unique. You see, that's what it really is, it's logic. So when you want to develop an application, you have to sit down and do algorithms and flowcharts and all those things. If you skip it, you realize that you keep going back to the dashboard because you did not think through what your application requires. So the most important part is figuring out all the things that are necessary, all the data that must be collected for your application to be sufficient. So these are just some parts. Of course, there are middlewares, there are other things, but these are just some parts. Like, I'm not trying to teach you this here. I'm just trying to give you an idea of what it looks like. Now, when it comes to the front end, let me give you an example of what it means. In the front end, like I said, we are using React. So in the front end, we have components. What are those things? Remember, I mentioned components. What are components? React believes in reusing things. So, for example, inside the app.js, I have defined my routes. These routes you are seeing, you can see income details, edit income, all those things are routes. But inside hold on, let me get it. For example, let me say dashboard. I think it's inside pages. Dashboard, for example, or even home. Let me even start from home. You can see that inside the home, what you are seeing here now, you can see what you're seeing here now. Let me show where you find it. Hold on just a sec. So you understand that these things are not as complex as they sometimes make them look. CD. Let me start by starting the server. npm run backend. So the server is running now, as you can see. Node1 is running the server. Now let me navigate to the front end. This is what I was trying to say, that commands are very important, very, very important as a developer. So here I'm starting the front end. So both the backend and the front end are running now. See what I'm trying to say soon. Just give it a minute. So right now it's running on a local server. I'm using the port 3000 to run it. You can use any port you want, really, just to define it. This is the application. You can remember what I showed you that time. This application is designed to look at it here. You can see it here. So it's not magic. Those things are under the hood. If you right click on this, you will not find it. If you inspect, you will not find it there because React hides them. React hides it. So you won't find it, if you know what I mean anyway. So let's try and log in. Remember those things I told you? Because I have used this on a browser before, it will send me, I have to put it. These are authentication processes anyway. See, I'm designing this for a group in my church. So let me see, just a second. You put this, what they call agent verification. Basically, if you use one browser to try and log in, it will ask you to, if you are using a different browser from the one you used before, maybe you use Mozilla this time, then you're using Chrome the next time to log in, it will sit as a different agent and ask you to get access code to verify that you're still the same person. I'm sure you must have seen some of the things you've tried using before. So you come here, for example, this is basically the app, and it's still in progress, it's not done, but you can see it gives you all the income, gives you an access of all this, like a summary of how many transactions you have, the total amount, the largest transaction here, all those information, the lowest transaction. Like if you're looking for this largest transaction now, let's look for it together. You see it is here, 16,000, and that's the largest amount there. Then all the categories, you can see that there are different categories: technology, there is gadget, there is market. All of them are 4. That's what. So all these things are logic. I'll show you where this logic now, this particular logic, where I wrote it. I'll show you now. So you understand that it's not magic, it's something that you actually do. But before that, remember what I told you about components. What are components? All those things that you might reuse, you put them into components. Like a loader. Remember that when I logged in, something was loading. That's when this loader comes in. This is the loader. So we are breaking them into components so that you can reuse them. So basically, remember what I told you about Redux. Now this is Redux folder. I'm using Redux here. And I put them into what they call slices. Okay. So what I'm looking at now is income slice. Remember those things I told you. Look at it, calculate lowest transaction, calculate income value. Are you seeing it now? They are all here. Calculate category. Those are the things. Of course, there's a lot more going on, but I'm just trying to tell that they're all there, defined. So this is what the front end looks like, really. When it comes, this is the Redux part. You define this, you define the services. This is where we're doing the API calls. You can see post API calls. This is where we are doing it. And I'll show you how I test my APIs. This is what they call Insomnia. You can use Insomnia. You can see here, I'm using this to test logging in a user. You can see those API routes. And this is a post request. There are different types of requests. There's get, post, patch, delete, and the rest of them. I think about 4 or 5 of them. And puts, so 5. Then there is of course Postman. Those are the 2 most popular ways of testing your APIs. I hope that this is not overwhelming. It shouldn't be really, because let me just make it simple and clear. When it comes to, I've seen people say, oh, I know how to use Excel. Excel is pretty simple, for example. Excel is simple if you're using for simple things, but Excel can be very much robust, very powerful. So what I'm trying to say is this: when you start using Excel, it doesn't intimidate you, because you just put 2 things together, use a small sum function or sum method or whatever, and then it combines and calculates the sum of 2 numbers or the sum of 20 numbers or 100 numbers with just something as simple as sum. Put those things, the range in bracket, and it calculates it for you. And that's how I see programming. You can start from that simple way, and then the more you keep developing yourself, you start writing complex functions, even in simple things like Excel, as simple in code, because Excel is not simple. Let me give you an example. I was working on this. I'm still working on this. This is actually a finance manager, personal finance manager. You can see, I will show you something now that you understand that Excel is not as simple as people make it seem. Look at this now. For me to get this tracked record, look at the formula I had to write. Let me show you. Are you seeing formula? Is there anything simple about this formula? Of course not. But it's simple because it's still logic. Why is it simple to me now? It's simple because I have come to understand that, like I told you before, it is just syntax that changes. It is still the same logic. These are if statements that you can see. If this is not this, then look at this, check into this. If it is not that, then, different if statements are just wrapped together. So if the header is header, which is defined somewhere here, is header, is empty, then bring out an empty string. Check it under from if the is total, you see that under if is here again. So it's just logic. If this does not happen, do this. If that does not happen, do this. Looping. You're looping through different things, different conditions, so that you get what you want as your required result. That's what programming is. So if you think you are logical in that way, do not be overwhelmed by the too much codes. Those thousands and thousands of codes started with just 2 lines of code, and then it started to grow and grow. As your logic is growing, your codes will keep growing. Before you know it, you've written hundreds and thousands of code, but it's logic. Does it make any sense? I hope it does. I really do hope it does. So I'll go back to what we're doing, so that, because I don't think we have a lot of time. This is something that takes a lot of time to learn. I mean, to explain, but I'm trying to rush things here. Sorry, I shouldn't have done this. I should have started somewhere else, but it's fine. Okay, so I talked about AI. I think that was the last year. AI. AI is what is booming right now. This is the best time to jump into AI. In fact, for developers, there are people they call AI whisperers. Those are the people those guys are calling like 400K every year. AI, 400,000 pounds every year, or dollars more, because they know how to talk to AI machines, get them to get more required results. So this brings me to what people are saying. With AI, sometime in the future, take people's jobs. Of course it will. Automation took people's jobs. There was a time that everything was manual. Automation came into play, and people lost a lot of jobs. But people who learned how to use the machines got jobs. So as people were losing jobs, people were getting jobs. So guess what? These people who already understand how to write these codes, that will still be in the best position to understand how to speak to AI systems, because they are still computers. They are still zeros and ones. Just like I was telling my wife recently, she was asking me, okay, how does biometrics work? How does, when I put a card into a machine, it tells me that it's expired. How does it work? They're all just numbers. Even your fingerprint is zeros and ones, it's numbers. It's just like when I'm developing an application, I try to use unique IDs, so that whenever that that same fingerprint, for example, scans through the machine, it will recognize that unique ID that I've assigned to it. Unique ID could be something as simple as date.now. It will pick that very second, that very minute, that very hour, that very day, that very year, and that can never repeat itself. Because you can never have the same second or the same minute or the same hour or the same day or the same year ever. It doesn't happen. So it becomes unique. So when you are going to scan, the thing scans you. You're like, this is a wizard. How does it happen? How does it scan my finger? It has assigned a unique identifier to your finger. That's what happens. So the anytime they run your finger through a database, because that unique identifier is found, and then it says that this is who it matches with. If that makes any sense. So it's unique identifiers really that makes it possible. So it's all zeros and ones. Even AI is just working with models. It's just working with it so fast than any human being. That's what makes AI intelligent and interesting. So yes, there will still be need for developers. Just that the job role, the way our job is done will keep changing, just like is expected of every career in the world. So yes, right now there's a panic, but you shouldn't panic. The only thing I would advise anyone who is learning right now is learn how to use AI to make your job better and possibly learn how to go into the field of AI. And I think I'll be talking about a few things to that effect. Now, you might be surprised when you talk about AI, people are like, AI, yeah, it's still some of the familiar things you have heard before. Python, R, Java, C++, there are still tools that will help you to go into AI, whether you like it or not. Some of the skills you require, linear algebra. Remember, I told you maths is important, statistics, probability is important. Spark and big data technologies, things like Spark, Apache, Cassandra, all of them are tools that are out there for you to learn. I think what you need to do here is, I cannot really show you models of this because I don't have them, but pick anything I'm telling you here are the things you need to learn, because in tech, one of the things that makes it overwhelming is that there are so many tools out there. So the ones I'm highlighting for you are the ones that are really big in the market, that if you learn them, you can start earning good money. So know the theory behind machine learning algorithm. Just know the theory. You don't have to be too deep into this, but know the theory. Understand what linear regression is. Deep learning algorithm, CNN, RNN, they are all basically just network channels that you need to understand, basically to help you better understand how computers work, especially when it comes to computer modeling and learning how the computers interpret things. You can implement these things using frameworks like PyTorch, Serrano. There are careers in AI. I'm trying to rush here because we don't have enough time. There's data science, there's machine engineering, machine learning engineering, AI architect, AI developer, BI developer. And somebody be wondering, how can you say data science is part of AI? Let me surprise you. AI does not know anything if you don't feed it with data. And the job of data scientists basically is to analyze data and bring them out in useful formats that things like AI systems can use. So the data scientists will always work in the field of AI, always. In fact, they are very required in the field of AI, because if you give AI systems useless data, it will not even know what it's looking for. So that's one of the things I told, that these things will always still require human beings, whether you like it or not. Just that the way they will require us to keep changing. So data science, machine learning engineering, all these things I wrote here are part of the things you can dive into. And I already told you the things you need: Python, R, all those things. Just learn. Those are the popular ones. Learn them, and you're already on your way into the field. For data science, what do you need to know? I already said Python and R, SQL. SQL, because remember, SQL is database. If you don't know how to structure your data, then what data are you talking about? So SQL is important for gathering data. Libraries like NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib are all good libraries you can use for as a data scientist. They make your codes, the way you write your codes better and easier. You need to be good with maths, like I already said, linear algebra, statistics, calculus, then machine learning. UI UX design. This is one of the simplest ones. This is one of the easiest ways to go into tech. If you have a good creative imagination, you have a good creative sense, then UI UX design might be for you. UI simply means user interface, UX means user experience. So it's all about aesthetics and usability. things like wireframing. I don't know if you've seen wireframing, just Google wireframing. You basically use it, you can even use paper and biro, paper and pencil for wireframing. Just basically outlining how a page of a website or web application should look. Figuring out the sizes, the length in terms of maybe pixels or RAM, all those things, where the buttons should be, can be wireframing, basically. Because before we start designing, for most front-end engineers, they need a UI UX designer to have designed how the page should look like. Then the front-end developer now interprets that page with code. So wireframes, very important. Visual design skills like color, typography, contrast, you have to be very good at it. Simple things like this. Let me, I don't know, let me just show you something quickly. Sorry. Let me show you something quickly. Let me see. I think this might help. Sites like this, you see what I'm talking about here. Like this color hunt now, you can see how they combine colors, different shades of colors. You can see. So a good UI UX designer will understand how to combine different shades of color to give a website the look and feel it needs. A good UI UX designer will understand what kind of colors, what kind of fonts to use, especially when they're designing sites for different types of consumers. So if you're designing something that requires for children, you know that the kind of colors you use are the kind of colors that children appeals to children. So another set that people get fonts from is Google Fonts. I think I have it saved on my stuff here. Okay, if it's not here, then all I have to do is just go to Google Fonts. This is a place for downloading very good fonts. You can see. All you have to do is just put the name of the font. Basically search for the font. And then you can save it. You can get it in different sizes. But let me give you an example. These are just tools that people use for UI UX designers. You can see different sizes, whether it is regular, italic, and the rest of them. So all these things are tools people use, if it makes any sense. So then design tools like Figma. Figma is the most popular one. There are other ones. Just learn Figma. Most of the interviews, they'll ask you for Figma. I know how to use Figma very well because I'm interested in these things. I know how to use Photoshop very well. Sometimes, like I like to be able to design my application from start to finish without needing anybody's help. So that's why I learned some of these things. Then you have to have a good communication skill because you're going to be working with a lot of people, like front-end people. You have to be able to understand how to interpret designs. That's why empathy comes into play, and collaborative skills. Prototyping, that's InDesign. InDesign is an Adobe app package you might need to learn. Trust me, you don't have to learn everything at once. If you know Figma and you have a good design sense, you have started already. Then UI design components and icons. You have to understand how to use components and icons. Like I would have shown you, but maybe remind me later, I'll show you so I don't keep going out of this presentation. Then A/B testing. A/B testing simply means an experiment, basically. The designers do. They could do a page and put the buttons on the left-hand side. Do another page, put the buttons on the right-hand side. That's align the buttons to the left and that one align them to the right. And they give it to different users. So they will see how the users respond to them. So that they will be able to decide whether to put the buttons on the left or on the right. It sounds complex, but it's very productive. Now, design guidelines, you have to understand all the design guidelines, and you have to at least have a decent degree of writing ability. That what makes you UI UX designer. That's why I said it's one of the easiest for anyone to go into. It's actually pretty straightforward. So just take these keywords you can see here. I'll share this at the end of the course. Take them and you can do your way to become a UI UX designer. I have a friend who is a UI UX designer who lives in London. He is earning £130,000 annually as a UI UX designer. So it doesn't pay badly at all. That's my point. It's good money. Cyber security. There's a red team, there's a blue team. The red team is the hackers. The blue team are the people, the cyber security engineers or the network security engineers. Things they do, they just build firewalls, VPNs, intrusion detection systems, prevention systems, endpoint security. I'm sure you've seen some endpoint security if you've worked in certain companies. mobile security, your phones, most of your phones have mobile security. In DNS security, if you worked with certain servers, you understand DNS very well. Data loss prevention system, so that, like I remember when I was in Deloitte, I designed a system that, because they had a lawsuit then that cost them a lot of money because they lost some data um, in the Abuja office. So what I did was I designed a system that every day it does an incremental backup from the server, the backup system in our office in Lagos. It backs up to Abuja. So incremental backup means it doesn't copy what is already there before. It just copies what added newly to the files or whatever, and just backs them up. So the first backup takes time. The incremental backup doesn't take as much time. So it just does that, so that in case anything happens to any of the systems, whether the one in Lagos, we'll have a backup in Abuja. That was the old way of doing things. These days, people now use cloud. That's why we now have AWS and all that. Those things were not there as at then. But now we have these things available. What are clouds? You might be asking. It's just basically servers. People have dedicated somewhere that hosts different applications. It's still the same thing, just that you don't manage them by yourself anymore. Somebody's managing them. So they take care to really make sure that they are backed up several places to prevent any data loss, really. So all this multi-factor authentication, incident response, they're all part of what cybersecurity does. Basically, any form of security is what it does. I think we just have 10 minutes of this one. Let me see if I can rush through it. So you don't need to do the certification, but if you ever want to do certification, there's CCNA, the CCNP, there's NSE 4, 6, and 7, which is for specialist professionals, architects. They're nice, but the skill is more important, in my opinion. So you have to know how to use virtual machines. I'm sure some of us are familiar with virtual machines, where you can install different operating systems in the same machine. You can install Windows, you can install Linux on the same laptop, for example, with a VM machine, with a VM. You have to know how to write your command lines, that's the shell codes. You have to be a good system administrator, understand the system back, very well, because that's how you know how to protect your ports, how to lock certain things. As a cybersecurity specialist, you have to understand system administration very well. Computer networks, you have to understand the 4 layers for TCP, but 7 layers for OSI. The 7 layers are the most popular ways of seeing it. 7 layers of network, you have to understand it very well. Then personal digital security, you have to basically practice what you preach. That's leave it out yourself. Although you see some offices where people write their password and paste it on their computer so they don't forget, that's bad. So you have to be able to orientate people about how wrong that can and what the implication of that could be. If that makes any sense. Then I already talked about class certifications. You don't have to bother about it. The list is here if you want to do them. Project management in tech. Agile is just the most popular way of managing projects. Scrum is like a framework for Agile. Scrum is the most popular. So if you know these two concepts, I can assure you that there's a course on Scrum that can take you hours and hours and hours. They're still talking about only Scrum. So, but if you want to do project management in tech, these are the things you need to learn. You have to understand terminologies like sprints, story, stuff like that. That people like Scrum masters that work in tech companies, they're just project managers basically, but they are tech project managers. So this is another very, very simple way of entering tech, and they're earning very good money. I wouldn't waste time with this. Are the 7 layers of network. I wouldn't waste your time with this. Now, portfolios and repositories. I'm trying to rush this. Remember what I told you, GitHub, Bitbucket, and GitLab. I will show you this maybe during the question answer, because we might have another session for question and answer. Where do you find useful resources? This is where you find them. Udemy, Coursera, YouTube, LinkedIn. Some of them are free, some of them are paid for. Just go there, you find. In fact, these days, you don't need to pay for courses. YouTube has a lot of them. Just go there and find what you're looking for. Learning right. Code along where you're learning. Trying out the practice exercises that's given to you by instructors. That's how you learn. Use realistic timelines. Map out a certain amount of time daily to learn. Because we are busy people these days, be realistic. Don't tell yourself I'll learn for 4 hours. You go to work, you come back, you're tired. Even if it's 1 hour, 30 minutes, 1 hour. Start small. If you start big, it will discourage you. Start with that 1 hour. Before you know it, you're improving to 2 hours. Just start small, but start and be consistent. Master one thing. It's better to master a few things than learn so many things and be a mediocre. Work on projects. There's no how you can say you have learned something until you can do projects on your own. These 4 things are the 4 pillars of learning right. Do them right, and I can assure you, you're on your way to learning, starting that tech career. There are different migration channels for those who are looking to migrate with tech jobs. There's the skilled worker visa, for example, in UK. There is the global talent visa. These are the 2 best visas which people come into the country. I'm currently on a skilled worker visa. It basically is a 5-year route. After the 5 years, you're a permanent resident, and then you get your citizenship. Global talent visa can be 3 years, can be 5 years route. It's basically what they might be calling a founder's visa in the nearest future. Then there's a student visa dependent route, which is not very great, but it's a 10-year route. If you go through the maybe school route, every time you're learning from master's to PhD and the rest, it's 10-year route. Then there's the high potential individual visa. This one is given to people who went to schools in the top 50 universities in the world. It's not very easy to get. So this one is very scarce because how many people went to schools in the best top 50 schools? Then to Canada, express entry is part of it. You already know what express entry is. It's a 2-year route to citizenship, 3-year route to citizenship, basically. Means you're entering the country as a permanent resident. There's provincial nomination where you can apply to different provinces in Canada, like Nova Scotia, Manitoba. They all have what they call certain codes you can use and apply. I think they're called IR something. You use it and apply. Tech people are getting jobs every time in Canada. Recently, a friend of mine and his wife is a tech person. They just moved to Canada on work visa. So you already know work visa 2 is there. It's 3 years route to permanent residency. Then there's a student visa route, just like that of the UK. It takes a longer time. I don't always encourage that one, but it's there. So CV presentation, learn how to present your CVs in a way that, in fact, if your CVs are longer than 2 pages, you're already talking nonsense. There's nothing you're saying there. Just highlight the 3 most important things you've done in that job. You don't have to say everything, especially in the most recent job. The most recent role you hold, you can highlight more than 3. But the old ones, just mention 3. The most recent, we can have 4 or 5, it doesn't matter. But make your CV as concise as possible because nobody has time to look at everything on your CV. Then, if they're looking for people that understand React, HTML, CSS, for example, make sure that you're repeating those keywords as often as possible. Like I use React to work on this project. Me and this one worked on the team. We used React, we use this, keep repeating those words because if it's an algorithm that is checking those things, then your CV will be picked out as those that require a second look. If you use bullet points, highlight the right skills for the job they're applying for. Then show that you are able to work well with teams. Where to find jobs? LinkedIn, Hired, Indeed, Tip Top Jobs. These are the 4 most popular ones in the UK, at least. Interview stages. Do we have time for this? I think, Uche, you might have to do another, just the last one, but in this last one, we'll have the question and answers and everything together, then we can close. Let me continue and see how far we can go. Get to know your interviewer or get to know your interviewer. Oral skill assessments are popular in the UK. Usually last for 30 to 60 minutes. Then there's a technical interview. This time, most of the time, usually real-time code challenge. That's you write the code in front of the examiner, or you take home. Usually, sometimes, rarely is a take-home code challenge. If it's a real-time code challenge, it could last up to 90 minutes to 120 minutes. That's 2 hours. There's a competence test. That's those usual scenario-based questions where they're usually asking things like, what will you do in this situation? Please answer those things using the STAR technique. Mention the situation that you had, the task that was meant to be performed, the action you took, and the results. That's the STAR approach. Then finally, for the offer, make sure you have gone to go and check what the average people in that course you're applying for, in that job you're applying for, what they're earning, and then just add the 10% on top of it. Once you found out the average, add the 10% on top when you're negotiating. That's my own technique for doing it. How to negotiate, show real value. do your research, be desirable, ask the right questions. I will tell you more of this during the question and answer question series of how you can ask the right questions. Communication skill is important. People skill. Sometimes people know you have the skill. They're looking for people they can work with. So people skill is very, very important. How you talk about the weather. Oh, it's so lovely. It's been a bit cold in the previous months, but just talk about the weather. They want to hear you talk about their pets, stuff like that, especially here in the UK. So people's skill is very, very important. Thank you. And I hope this was as enlightening as I hope it was. I hope you learned one or two things. This slide will be made available to you. At the next session, we'll just open up for question and answers and see if there's any question, then we can close from there. Thank you once again. Uche, over to you.